according to Luke. Jesus said to his disciples, "The person who is trustworthy in very small matters is also trustworthy in great ones. And the person who is dishonest in very small matters is also dishonest in great ones. If therefore you are not trustworthy with dishonest wealth, who will trust you with true wealth? If you are not trustworthy with what belongs to another, who will give you what is yours? No servant can serve two masters. He will either hate one and love the other, or be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and mammon." The Gospel of the Lord. The person who is trustworthy in very small matters is also trustworthy in great ones. Today we celebrate this Mass within the Jubilee Year of Hope, and we acknowledge the teachers and the catechists. I think it's safe to say that any of the great teachers we've had growing up, coaches, catechists, they help us to see that the small things are important too. The big things matter, there's no doubt about that. But when we're able to see that the small things matter as well, that's when great teaching happens. That's when great catechism happens. Jesus himself, the high teacher, acknowledges that. The person who is trustworthy in very small matters is also trustworthy in great ones. In other words, there's consequences to our actions. There's consequences to our habits. There's consequences to the decisions we make. In 1999, NASA sent a probe towards Mars. And they had a contractor, Lockheed Martin, who assisted with this project. And the issue was that Lockheed Martin, the metrics they used were inches. But NASA was using centimeters. And over the course from Earth all the way to Mars, that small difference became a huge difference. And the probe blew up. It entered the atmosphere incorrectly at Mars. In other words, a small error in the beginning becomes a big error in the end. That's how life works. Anybody who likes golf too. You make a small error with your putt on the green. By the time it gets to the pin, it's going to be way off. Anything else in life is like that too. So what is Jesus telling us today in the gospel? What's he getting us to focus in on? The same thing he did for the saints. Those small things that Jesus asks of us. He's saying commit to those. Yep, we can turn our mind to when Peter was called out onto the water and come out onto the water. Call me out onto the water. And Peter begins to lose just a little bit of trust in Jesus. But it's not just those big moments. What we need to do is think of all the moments in which Jesus was training Peter, helping Peter to move more and more towards sainthood. It's all those smaller yeses in which Peter's building trust in Jesus Christ, so that when things pick up at the end, after Jesus dies and he rises from the dead, that first pope has committed himself to a life of trust. So the small things this week, tomorrow with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and wrapping us around to next week. The small things that Jesus asks of us, really what he's doing is he's challenging us to expand our heart in trust. That's what he's doing. But we have to get on the same system as Jesus. And that system is commit ourselves to a life of trust with Jesus. So that when our heart, that probe we could say, it's not going towards Mars. It's going towards heaven. But we have to be on the same system as him. And what that means is to open our hearts to a life of trust in him. It's important from time to time to think back in our life and say, when did Jesus call me to greater trust in the past? And to learn from those experiences so that moving forward we can say, Jesus, I'm willing to trust in you even more. And that can be challenging. And a good prayer today is, Jesus, help me to be trustworthy in the small matters that you've given me, that I might be a person of exceptional trust in the great things you're going to give me in the future. May we each grow in trust in Jesus Christ. It was the path of sainthood. It's the path for us too. And he's willing to help us with that as well.